evening. This is your show, everybody. All those listening out there, Seahawks Nation, you know who you are, 12th man. Yes, this is your show. Can you believe we've made it to this point? All of the turmoil of the 2014 campaign. We now stand at the precipice, the top of the hill, looking to take that one more step to ultimate status that any NFL team can truly grasp. Welcome, 12th man, 12th lady, and Hawks Nation around the world. This is your show, 12 for 12s, with your host, Paul Beyer. I got to tell you, folks, exciting stuff. I mean, it's Tuesday, and I feel like it's just so slow. The days are moving by. It's only been a couple of days, but I feel like they just can't get here soon enough. This Seahawks team has done something that is truly amazing. We are one game away from returning to a Super Bowl. Can you hear it, 12? The ringing of the bell. A destiny many of us thought improbable awaits the 12 and the Seattle Seahawks. Merely one game and a golden-armed QB away from a return trip to the Super Bowl. A return trip which would put this team on the verge of becoming a dynasty. And us 12's a fan base that will live in legend forever. I'm not cashing checks or claiming victory yet, but it's amazing to consider what lies in front of us all. Well, do I have a show for you tonight, 12? We have got it all right here. A very, very special NFC Championship preview. My compadre from Packers Talk Radio and from the benches, Jacob Westendorf, will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Jacob's a friend of the program. This is his now third time with us. You can follow him on Twitter at Jacob Westendorf, Jacob Westendorf, Westendorf, just like it's spelled. This will be, again, his third visit, first during the off-season panel show this summer, and second to preview the opening game of this season versus the same Green Bay Packers. I mean, honestly, folks, I'm so jacked up. I'm assuming you are. I mean, oh, my Lord, what is in front of us? What can we get? What can we achieve? So much. We'll let the Metallica just get a play in the background there. I love Metallica. For Whom the Bell Tolls, that's a good way to start this little episode. 66. What happens when you add 66? 6 plus 6 equals 12? OMG. Mind bursted. Well, we got a big one, folks. Of course, all of the normal commentary. Hawks 12. My guest, Jacob. This is going to be a fun one. And remember, do me the favor of following me on Twitter, at PBizzle, PBIZZEL. You can also find me on Facebook, Paul Beyer, as well as on the 12 for 12's radio page there. You can always visit me on YouTube at 12 for 12s. I post all the shows, interviews, usually a few days after the Tuesday live show that's airing live, recording live, and then, of course, the website. The website, you can get all the information you'd ever want to have about me and this endeavor of now going on 2 years, the 12 for 12's radio experience. I throw an experience in there now because I kind of am experienced. 66 episodes now into this, and 1 week after another, getting ready for you to make sure you're aware of what's going on in Hawk Land. Well, we always have to start this show off with our normal quick take, so why don't we just jump right into that, and let's get to it, okay? First on the docket, B.J. Daniels. B.J. Daniels, who's been pretty much a lifer practice squad guy for us the last few years, is the third QB, a guy that can really show himself as a running quarterback, a thrower. He can pretty much show you whatever you need as a practice quarterback, and keep obviously Russell healthy. Russell Wilson, that is. He was actually signed to the 53-man roster today, actually yesterday, and he will be listed as pretty much a jack of all trades when it comes to, amongst other positions, of just being the third QB. Pete Carroll actually mentioned that he will be available to play special teams. Normally, you wouldn't have your quarterbacks doing that. Also, wide receiver, running back, potentially defense, and backup QB if necessary. Basically, he is the Jose Oquendo of football now for this Seattle Seahawks team. This is a great reward, I think, for BJ, who's basically been this team's Rudy. He'll get definitely a bump up in pay as being on the game roster, and maybe get a sack against the Packers on Sunday. Obviously, that's a little ode to the Rudy story. And actually, speaking of Rudy, I thought I'd bring this up, a little tidbit that I found out in all of my viewership of everything Seahawks this past week. But there was a great piece on Steve Rabel that was on NFL Films, and hopefully you've seen it. It's about 7 minutes long. It was on Seahawks.com a couple of days, last few days. You can find it there still. But a couple of things I didn't know about this, and it relates to Rudy. But Steve Rabel, who obviously plays wide receiver for the Seahawks, he was, before that, a wide receiver for the Georgia Tech Ramble and Wreck. And in the infamous game at Notre Dame, where he was involved in 1975, he claims to actually be directly responsible for allowing Rudy to even get in the game. And that's because he actually tipped a sure interception away from an Indy cornerback, a defensive back, the play prior, that one play prior. And if that had happened, obviously Rudy would never have gotten on the field to sack the Georgia Tech player, quarterback. Raves had a great piece, as I mentioned. You can check it out, NFL Films, Seahawks, and I know Field Goals also has it up, so look it up there. It is a can't-miss watch. But who would have ever thought we would be in the whole, history, plethora of, pantheon is the word I was looking for, of the famous and historic legend of Rudy Rudiger of Notre Dame. Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman were named to the Pro Football Writers Association All-Pro team. This is the top of the tops professional writers in the biz. These guys and women who select this team, and some of them you could probably guess, John Clayton being one of those, Peter King. I mean, these are the guys that everyone looks to as tops of the tops writers when it comes to professional football. But these were the players on the All-Pro first team. It's really a tragedy, in my opinion, that Cam nor Byron Maxwell could even get there. And I mention that because of the fact that this LOB, Legion of Boom, is so dominant together. And obviously we know Cam and how good Cam is, and he just doesn't get the credit. But Byron also, he is completely underestimated. I've talked at length about his numbers. Obviously, the players and opponents throw at him all the time because where are you going to throw the ball? But they do not have a lot of success, only giving up one touchdown this season, but has been one of the best rated cornerbacks in all of the NFL this year. He will definitely be, in this offseason, paid as one of the top cornerbacks available in free agency, and I think that's awesome for him, but it's just a shame that we could never get these four guys all on that, because we all know they are that good. Marshawn Lynch, of note, was named to the Pro Football Group's Writers Association all NFC team. So those were our three players of note on this team or involved in the team voting. Pete Carroll, he is now officially the best coach in his first 5 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks organization. A couple of little tidbits here, but Of the three that he's in the same ballpark with, Chuck Knox, Mike Holmgren. Chuck Knox actually I didn't realize this, as good a record as he had, but it was 48-31 in his first 5 seasons. Mike Holmgren, 42-39, and Carroll, 50-30. Obviously 2 games up on the Knoxmeister, Chuck Neister. Chuck, remember just ground Chuck? Remember just how awesome that was? Division titles, really not even close, 3 versus Holmgren's 1 for Carroll. Conference titles, 1 for Carroll versus 0. Super Bowls, 1 versus 0 for Holmgren. Playoff bursts, he's ahead of all of them. Carroll, 4 versus Knox's 3, and Holmgren's 2. The playoff record, again, really not even close. Pete Carroll, 6-2. Chuck Knox, 3-3, and Mike Holmgren, 0-2. Really, really amazing work to see what Pete Carroll and the John Schneider have done and put together with Paul Allen as the owner is just unbelievable in their first 5 seasons. Score, the scaled opponent-adjusted point ratio. Yeah, I know, geeky statistics, but the score, which is, as explained, the following. The opponent-adjusted point ratio is the ratio of a team's points to the average points of that team's opponents, normalized with a logarithm. Of course, you're going to have a logarithm in there. This value is calculated for a team's points for and the points allowed, then combined for a total rating. These results are then scaled using the average points scored across the league in order to give a result that corresponds directly to points. Well, guess who's number 1? That's right, 13-4, Seattle Seahawks, a offensive score of 2.39, which is clearly better than their opponents. The New England Patriots at 6.66. Offensively we rank actually 9th, and the Denver Broncos were 1st, 2nd New England, and Green Bay 3rd. So you can see the teams that are left here. The Indianapolis Colts were ranked 6th. But when you throw in our defensive score, we have a negative 7.59. That defensive rank is clearly number 1, and a score of 9.98. We are number 1. New England Patriots are still number 2. And, I'm sorry, I'm going back in the defensive rank. New England's number 8. Green Bay's number 14. Denver 18. And Indianapolis Colts 12. It shows you how really amazingly good the Seattle team is when we are so dominant in both areas, but just the defense is where you make your money, and it just proves its point once again. A couple stats on Russell Wilson here. Russell Wilson is now the top-rated passer in the NFL history during the postseason. The top 2, in this case, he will square off against Aaron Rodgers this next week, who is number 2. The rating for Russell Wilson lifetime in the playoffs, granted, is only 3rd season, and still has a number of games to catch up to be at the same level as Aaron Rodgers and some of these guys in this company. But this is just an amazing stat. Russell Wilson, a 109.6 lifetime passer rating for the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers, number 2, 105.3. Bart Starr, going way back in time with the Green Bay Packers, 104.8. Kurt Warner, that same Kurt Warner of the Greatest Show on Turf, St. Louis Rams, and then the Arizona Cardinals, a 102.8. And Drew Brees down in New Orleans, the Saints, 100.7. Here's another one. Only 3 players have had multiple 50-plus yards run this season. Jeremy Hill, 3, and that's for the Cincinnati Bengals. Le'Veon Bell for the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2. And Russell Wilson, 2. Amazing. Here's another one, Russell Wilson. Most games with a passer rating higher than 100 in their career. Well, again, he hasn't played as many, but guess who's number 1? Russell Wilson, 1st. Yeah, that's right, 1st. 28 overall in his NFL career. Number 2 in this category is Joe Flacco, and tied with many others is with 20, Dan Marino, 20, Ben Roethlisberger, 20, Carson Palmer, 19, Jeff Garcia, 18, Cam Newton, 18, Kurt Warner, 17, Andy Dalton, 16, Matt Ryan, 16. Again, just absolutely amazing to see a player in their first 3 seasons have a higher passer rating and with that many games. It's amazing. Okay, moving on. This week's head referee for the big NFC Championship versus the Packers, it will be Tony Corrento. Corrento has worked the AFC Championship game this last season. This will be his 14th postseason assignment, his 5th conference championship. His resume includes 5 wild card playoff games, 3 divisional playoff games, and a Super Bowl XLI. That's XL as in we were XL in 2005, and he was or 2006, I should say, and then in 2007 he did that Super Bowl as well. Corrente is on the high side when it comes to penalties, calling them at 17.7 per game. So something to remember when it comes to how teams perceive our aggressive play, let's just say. Off the field, but it definitely affects our bottom dollars as fans, as 12s, but the ticket prices for this year's NFC Championship are right now trending 1% higher than last year's. And, of course, those numbers usually crash when it gets closer to game time. But on the secondary market, when it comes to the Seahawks, there's nothing bigger, especially in this town of Seattle. All right, let's go ahead and get rolling here. A little after the bottom of the hour, Jacob Westendorf, again, will be on the program with me from Packers Talk Radio and From the Benches, his show. And we'll have a great conversation in previewing this huge game this weekend for both our teams and talk about what's going to be the difference makers, on both sides of the ball. So looking forward to that. All right, let's jump into our commentary this evening, and that is NFC Championship Part D. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Never has this statement proved more true than this season. For our Seattle Seahawks, besides the statistic of outscoring their opponents in the fourth quarter, 45-0 over their first, or I should say last, 6 games of the regular season, or if I included the divisional playoff game versus the Panthers, 62-7 in the fourth quarter. They've consistently come together, and in this case, in all phases of the game, as a team, to play their best as the championship chase reaches full throttle. Going back to look at the first time we played the Packers this season, the tea leaves clearly showed this would happen. Beating the Packers 36-16, but outscoring them 19-6 in the second half, after leading 17-10 at the end of the first 2 quarters. Much like the statistics have depicted since November, in that game in November I mentioned, the 23rd of November versus the Cardinals, the Hawks have dominated in all categories. In that first game, just to give you an idea, Seattle had 25 first downs versus Green Bay's 19. Total yards, Seattle 398 to 255. Rushing, which is obviously a key statistic for this team, 207 versus 80. We went over 2 Bills in that game. Passing, well, we're facing the strength of a team. This is where they make their money, the golden arm of Aaron Rodgers. We outpassed them 191 to 175. Per play, 6 yards versus 4.5. Total plays, 66 versus 57. Time of possession, 33 versus 26. Penalties, and believe it or not, we weren't the worst penalized team in this game. We only had 4 for 69, that one big pass interference, which I don't think was pass interference, and 8 for 65. Red zone, we were 3 of 5 in the red zone. The Packers were 2 of 3. Our real dominance, of course, yards per rush, 5.6 versus 3.8 for the Packers. We lived on the ground, 37 attempts versus the 21 for the Packers, completely shutting down their run game. The point is, and it's clear, we dominated this game. We only forced 1 turnover, and we turned the ball over ourselves on a special teams play, allowing them to score. Russell Wilson completed passes to 8 different players in this game, showing that he was on track to be an extremely efficient thrower once again of the ball. He had a passer rating of 110.9. Marshawn Lynch ran for 20 times and 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. Team play was balanced, and it was in balance with the strengths of this team, 37 runs to 28 passes. It seems like a lifetime ago, after enduring the middle portion of this season, that brought, I think, and I think most of us think, troubled times. Now we're back to being us. We're now here at this point where this team that started a wonderful, wonderful season off, a extremely uplifting evening on September 4th, that Thursday against the Packers, to try and finish it out. It feels so worth it now. Again, dealing with 29 years of mediocrity for this franchise, scoring some joy in 2005, getting to the Super Bowl, and now experiencing complete fulfillment with every game. To be quite honest, every day I get to cover this team, it's nothing short than freaking awesome. We all know what happens with a team and with this team this weekend. Other than playing the early game on NFL Championship Sunday, all is well. Actually, when you think about it, we're playing exactly when we should. 12:12 p.m. Sunday. 12 truly is a magic number, not only for us, but for the Seattle Seahawks. All right, we're going to keep moving here. Got a couple of things to get into prior to the big guest this evening, Jacob Westendorf. But before that, a shout-out to my sponsor, and then we'll get rolling right into the Hawks 12. Sam's Tavern. I'll head downtown to watch a Seahawks game, last one of the season down there, or just meeting up with some friends. Well, think about hitting Sam's Tavern on 1st and Pike in Pike Place, the home of the Red Robin Hamburger. Great eats, good beer, awesome people. Take a load off and enjoy your time at Sam's Tavern. You'll be glad you did. Check out the Bloody Mary Bacon Masterpiece, a burger and a Bloody Mary together. I don't know if it gets much better. Personally, I'm starving right now. Sounds like a fantastic thing to munch on. I'll tell you what, it's awesome. Get down there, see Sam's Tavern, eat, have a great time. You never know what might happen when you tell them Double OT or 12 for 12s sent you. I mean, geez, they might give you an extra salt package. All right, let's get into the Hawks 12 here. We have so much to talk about. And by the way, I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Thank you again for listening to this wonderful program that is all about you, the 12th man. Well, the first topic tonight, Bam Bam Cam, thank you ma'am, or should I say, Batman.
Field goal attempt off the right hash line. Over the top, flags are down. Literally leaping over the line was Cam Chancellor. The ball sailed over him, but flags came out. One thing you can't do is push off of the players at the line of scrimmage, but he just jumped over everybody.
Yeah, that was something Brian Snyder had to see in studying their field goal team, that they could jump a guy over the center right there and possibly.
False start. Offense number 79.
Over the top again. Did he get a hand on it? It's no good to kick as Cam Chancellor jumped over again.
Defense number 31. 5-yard penalty. 4th down.
Now they're calling a penalty on Cam Chancellor because he ran into the kicker.
I don't know how he's not blocking those kicks.
I don't either.
He's running right through there. He jumps right over the pile, and he's right there when the kicker kicks the ball. I don't know how he's missing it.
Richard Sherman is saying that he got a piece of the ball, and so you should be able to bump into the kicker. And this time, the spot is down, the kick is up. And maybe the longest 3 field goal attempts, another flag, and it's going to be an offside this time.
Offside, defense number 27. Penalties decline, the field goal is good. That is the end of the first half.
Shotgun snap. Looks. Still looks. Fires. Ball is intercepted. Coming back to near side. He's going to go. It is Cam Chancellor. They are not going to touch it. 15, 10, 5. He strides in. Cam Chancellor. Touchdown. Seahawks. 91 yards. No flags. The Seahawks are going to host the NFC Championship next week. 91 yards to Cam. Holy catfish.
That's what big-time defenses do. At the big times in ball games, they step up and make big plays. And Cam Chancellor stepped in front of the receiver right there, takes it 91 yards for the touchdown. And I think that pretty much seals the deal.
I hope you enjoyed that little piece I put together celebrating Cam Chancellor's unbelievable evening at the Clink this past Sunday in the divisional round of the 2015 playoffs. Darth Chancellor, who I like to call him, goes by Bam Bam, but considers himself Batman, had one for the ages. 11 total tackles, 9 solo, 1 pass defended, and 1 pick six return for 91 yards. This afternoon, ESPN 710, Danny David Moore was actually calling him a Cylon. Like those Battlestar Galactica droids. I couldn't help myself personally. I made a little meme to celebrate it. I called him Cylon Model number 31. You can check it out on my Facebook page or Twitter account. It's really amazing to see Cam playing at such an elite level, considering he will probably undergo surgery this offseason on bone spurs in his foot, possibly even his hip. I mean, he's talked about possibly having surgery there. He is truly a game changer on a defense amongst a unit of game changers. The 49ers dynasty had Ronnie Lott. The Seahawks, on the precipice of becoming another dynasty, have Cam Chancellor. Truly amazing. Injury report going into the NFC Championship game. You've probably heard by now about Paul Richardson. He is going to be out. He's on the IR, injured reserve, with a torn ACL, amongst other issues, according to Pete Carroll, and out for the rest of the playoffs. This news really, really does stink since Paul was really coming on and coming into his own in the wide receiver position group. I think we're going to really miss him. His production has been nothing short than solid over these last 5 games, totaling 16 catches, 190 yards on 24 targets. He averaged 11.875 yards per reception over that time frame, with a 20-plus yard catch in in 4 of those 5 games. It's amazing, Paul. You did a great job your rookie campaign. You figured out your place in this offense, and we as 12s are keeping you in mind, and we hope you get better soon. Get that surgery, get back to us for another campaign this next season. Max Unger, who was rolled up on in the 4th quarter, nicking up his injured ankle again. He'd gotten through the entire game and was truly unlucky, I think, in the situation to have a Panther defensive lineman really literally take a seat on his backside. I actually had the same thing happen to me in college, a 320-pound right tackle, my own 320-pound right tackle. He sat directly on my right ankle as I was in he basically got bull rushed back into the backfield. He turned and sat right on my ankle as I was doing a good job blocking my guy. But I actually heard my foot explode. I thought it was dust. And I was lucky enough to only be laid up a week and actually played in the next game doing work on goal line situations. The good news is on Max, he's going to be okay. Obviously, he's probably still dealing with the ankle injury, and you do at this time of the year as NFL players, but it appears that he will be able and good to go. So let's just keep crossing our fingers that Maxie is back and able to play. And it's always important. We got to have our best guys in there for these big games. Third person to pop up on the injury report during the game was Byron Maxwell, our stud corner to go with the Legion of Boom, their starter. He was suffering, however, from shortness of breath due to some type of lung ailment. He was sick during the week. Apparently, this is something he suffered from periodically, whether it's asthma or something else. But apparently, he's doing better, and the team expects him to be back and back to his normal cornerback position this week versus the Packers. I like that news a lot, considering Aaron Rodgers is going to be showing up here in just a few days, which, by the way, the Packers are showing up a day early here Friday as opposed to their normal practice or travel schedule of showing up the day before on Saturday. Something to take into consideration. All right, we're going to take another short break, come back, get into my segment with Jacob Westendorf, who will be joining us here in just a few minutes from Packers Talk Radio and his show From the Benches. And it's just a fantastic time. We're going to spend some time talking about our teams, but doing some analysis and getting knee-deep in this. So, again, thanks for everyone listening live tonight and those that do listen on demand. But this will be a great segment coming up. So we're going to have a long segment time with Jacob. But before that, let's talk about our sponsor, Enlighten, the next big thing. I found the next big thing, Enlighten Strips. This is an amazing product that I personally use, from helping provide an energy burst during the day or recovery for electrolytes while working out. Enlighten Strips work. I use the sleep strips every night after taking the prescribed dose. I read for about an hour and fall asleep comfortably. This is coming from a guy who used to struggle with relaxing before bed. Additionally, they have strips for appetite suppression, providing antioxidants. These can make a difference in your life. Very convenient and affordable while being safe for all ages. No sugars, carbs, or calories. Go to enlighten.com. That's ENLYTEN.com today and find the right strips for you. You'll be amazed with the results. Enlighten. They are the next big thing. All right, we're going to take a quick break. As you all know, this is 12 Patrols Radio. Your host, Paul Beyer. Thanks again for joining us, and we will be right back in just a second. Well, here we are again. The Packers coming to the clink. The NFC Championship on the line versus, well, my Seattle Seahawks. I know that's not Jacob's team, but hey, we can talk more about that as we get going here. I keep dealing with this thing of I always felt our team is the rebellion, but I think we are really the Empire, and I'm kind of liking that. Maybe it's the dark, what they call it, the dark force. We're the bad guys, and I'm okay with that, Jacob. I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know if you guys saw this, but last year during the Super Bowl, Mike Daniels actually tweeted out, Legion of Boom, why don't the Packers be the bad guys for once? So I think that's how they're viewed around the league as well. And you can see the mentality on the defense. I mean, that's just kind of how they are. They like being the villain, and I like that about them.
It's we even wear the visors. All our guys wear those visors, it seems like, the dark ones, and it just makes us scary, I think. But anyways, that's just me talking.
Oh, Cam Chancellor, most intimidating person.
There you go. Well, folks, thanks again for joining us. This is 12 Patrols Radio. We're having our guest segment here. Play a little fun there with the Empire theme from Star Wars. But I'm joined now by my guest, Jacob Westendorf, from Packers Talk Radio's From the Benches, my compatriot, as I like to say, from brother from another mother and another team, but all the way out there in Wisconsin. So, Jacob, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good. Just kind of winding down a little bit from the divisional playoff game. The Packers weren't pushed a whole lot at Lambeau Field this season, and it didn't look good there for about 2.5 quarters, 3 quarters, but they were able to come out on top and beat the Dallas Cowboys and set up another matchup between the two teams that I think are the two best in the NFL.
I agree with you on that. I think the Patriots are right there. And really a healthy, and we'll get into this more, but a healthy Aaron Rodgers ups you guys immensely on that list, in my opinion. But before we get into all the analysis and what took place this last weekend and what we're going to be looking at this weekend, why don't you update us? I know we're a Seahawks crowd, but a lot of the guys that listen and women that listen to this show are definitely football fans. So tell us what's happening with you and From the Benches and Packers Talk Radio. I know you got a wonderful update to your website, and just what's new with you guys?
A lot has changed since September. We're trying to add some new programming and stuff here with the new year starting. From the Benches is still, well, actually we were a little late this week because I was at the game Sunday and unable to record, but we're supposed to be dropping on Mondays, so we're the first reaction show after the games are over that drops, and it's a fun way to do it. It's myself, Ross Uglum, and Ryan Hillsland, 3 friends of us. We just like to think of it as, a bunch of guys sitting around talking Packers football, and that's what we do. From the Benches, it's pretty straightforward. We analyze the game. There's not a lot of theatrics that go in with it. It's pretty straightforward football, and Green Bay Packers football specifically.
Well, it sounds like you guys need to bring me on to just do the board so I can at least throw in some Star Wars music from time to time, because I love the theatrics there.
Oh, I enjoy that. I got to say it's an honor. The 2 times I've been on this show now, you've had the Imperial March for me. I kind of enjoy viewing myself as the villain as well, so I appreciate that.
Well, let's talk about what happened this last weekend. Before I throw in my own thoughts on it, I'd love to get your brief synopsis of this past, well, not before the game, but just the season for you guys. What's the season been like as a Packers fan and an analyst for From the Benches?
Well, I mean, to begin the season, obviously, September the 4th, we went into Seattle and kind of got throttled by the Seahawks. My speculation is the 85 Chicago Bears could have played in Seattle that night and would not have won. The Seahawks were just on a different level at that point. The Packers lost 2 of their first 3 games, and then you have the famous Aaron Rodgers quote, which even I'm sick of hearing at this point, but RELAX tells everyone to relax after they lose to the Seahawks and the Lions, beat the Jets in between there, and then they just absolutely destroyed the Chicago Bears and became invincible at home. With all due respect to Seattle, Seattle was beaten at home this year. Green Bay's played 9 home games. They were not beaten at home this year. So you can at least make the argument that Lambeau Field was the superior home field advantage this season. Packers put up a ton of points at home. They beat a lot of teams pretty handily. They put up back-to-back 50 burgers on the Eagles and the Bears, middle of the season. And then probably the biggest game of the season was November 30th. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots came to town, and the Packers were able to beat them 26-21. It was back and forth kind of game. The Packers scored the first 13 points. Patriots never led in the game, but always kept it close throughout the way. And then the Packers were able to finish the season. They went 3-1 in December. They beat the Lions the last game of the season at Lambeau Field in a place that they've won one time in my lifetime. The last time the Lions won at Lambeau Field, I was 3 months old. So it's been quite some time for the Detroit Lions at Lambeau Field. Aaron Rodgers left that game with a calf injury. I was in the stands for that game, actually, so it was interesting to hear. He throws a touchdown pass to Randall Cobb, and then the crowd explodes because it's a touchdown, and then they realize he's laying on the turf, and you could have heard a pin drop in the stadium. Everyone was frightened. So Rodgers comes back. The crowd explodes as a punt takes place, which is why everyone didn't know what was really going on. But the crowd comes to life. The Packers end up winning that game 30-20, and then beat the Dallas Cowboys last week. So they are set up again with a rematch with the Seattle Seahawks in a classic great offense versus great defense kind of battle.
We're going to get into what happened at Lambeau this last week. I mean, obviously, it was the talk of the world, especially the Dez Bryant scenario and what took place. But before we jump into that, just if you would, describe exactly what is the issue with Aaron Rodgers' calf. I mean, I've heard a million different things, but I just want to hear it from you. I know you'll know exactly what's the issue, and how does it affect his ability to play?
Essentially what it is they're throwing around a lot of different words. One was a strain and one was a small tear. Essentially, with the understanding that I'm getting from a bunch of doctors that I read, is they're the same thing. So he has two small tears in his calf. How that affects him, you can kind of see it on Sunday. He wasn't moving around very well in the pocket. Aaron Rodgers is very good at escaping, making plays with his legs, extending plays, finding receivers that way, and you could just kind of tell that he wasn't able to do that until the last touchdown of the game. Rodgers rolls left, kind of limps left, as we call it, and fired a laser between a tight window to Richard Rodgers that turned out to be the game-winning touchdown. But basically what it is it limits his mobility within the pocket, and instead of being able to play, he's a little more statuesque, a little more Peyton Manning, Tom Brady type instead of, traditional Aaron Rodgers. He can still move a little, but not as well.
All right, let's jump into the game that happened for you guys this last weekend. And I'd like to just, not get too heavy into it, but just get your opinion on how it all played out. What was it like as not only a fan but an analyst to watch that game? And really a tale of two halves. It did look like the Cowboys were going to be extremely dominant and kind of, I don't want to say run away with it, but they looked to be unstoppable in the first half as they came back after you scored that first touchdown. But then, you guys took it to them in the second half. They had a couple turnovers, and you took advantage of that. What was your opinion of how the game played out?
Well, the bit of a turning point was, the Packers this season at home especially have kind of jumped out to huge leads early and taken away the other team's running game and forced them to play from behind, and then that has ended poorly for almost everyone that's played there. So what happened was the Packers went down. They got a stop on the first possession. Julius Peppers had a sack fumble that Romo recovered, so they punted. The Packers go down and score a touchdown. And it's 3rd and 4 for the Cowboys on their second possession, and the pass falls incomplete, and it looks like the Packers are going to get the ball back again, but Brad Jones was called for defensive holding, and that extended the drive for the Cowboys. If that play doesn't happen, you're looking at a possibility of the Packers going up 14-0, and the game kind of turned from blowout to shootout, even though it wasn't really a shootout, is the way that I would put it. As the game progressed, the Cowboys scored 14 unanswered points, and they had a chance to make it 17-7 going into half. A horrible spot by the officials appeared to give them a first down. They gave Jason Witten a couple extra yards. It was overturned by a replay, not the last overturning by a replay in that game, as we'll talk about more, but overturned by the replay, made it 3rd and 1. Romo throws a pass incomplete in the end zone. The Cowboys false start, and a field goal gets blocked by Dayton Jones. Dan Bailey's been money all year. He kind of missed 2 kicks in a row, one nullified by a false start, and one that was blocked. Packers made it 14-10 at halftime. It's 21-13 when DeMarco Murray fumbles, which in my opinion, everybody talks about the Des Bryant play. I think Julius Peppers stripping DeMarco Murray was the biggest play of the game, because if he doesn't do that, DeMarco Murray might score, and it's 28-13 at that point. From then on, Rodgers hits Devontae Adams for a 48-yard touchdown where he makes a nice move in the open field. And then the play I mentioned earlier where he kind of limps left, fires a laser between two guys, throws on the championship belt, and it's 26-21. And then the Des Bryant play that everybody saw happen. It was 26-21 at the time with about 4 minutes left in the game. 4 minutes left in the game, not 4 seconds left in the game. So you can kind of tell what my opinion on that is from that. The play is ruled incomplete on a reversal for the replay, and the Packers end up running the clock out on a spectacular catch by Randall Cobb. They start taking knees. The atmosphere at the stadium was incredible after Cobb made the catch and the ensuing victory formation. I haven't heard Lambeau quite like that in quite some time. It was a great way to be there, and it was a great game between two pretty good teams, both of which I think would have had a shot this weekend. But I think this is the best possible matchup for the National Football League, the way that it's set up now.
Well, let's talk about that Des Bryant. We'll call it incomplete pass. How about that? I got my own issues. I want to say my issues. I got my own solution for the NFL on this. But what really got to me as an amateur pundit like yourself is that it was all the people afterwards, the national pundits, outraged over this. And what I kept thinking and going into is, one, there's the book, that there's a rule, there's an interpretation of that rule, but also nobody considered exactly what you broke down is that there was 4 minutes left. The Packers, if they had scored, would have gotten the ball, let's just say, on their own 20, 25-yard line after a kickoff. They marched down the field, and they knelt on the ball at their own 20-yard line. They were in pretty good position to kick a field goal and ultimately win that game with no time on the clock. What's your opinion on this? And this isn't necessarily about Des Bryant or if it's a catch or not. It's to me, it's this false outrage that we see these national pundits, and especially guys like Skip Bayless, who, granted, he's a Cowboys fan or a Patriots fan, not really sure what he is, but the point is, what's the deal with you, and what do you think of this false outrage of the national pundits seem to just create stories with when they think about it, there really isn't a story?
Well, first and foremost, let me say this. Skip Bayless is public enemy number one here in Wisconsin, and for obvious reasons. He is the ultimate Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers-esque troll, and I think a lot of it is manufactured. So I have the policy on Twitter of, if you retweet something that Skip Bayless says, I unfollow you, because I don't follow him for a reason. I don't want to see anything he says. So there's a future memo to anyone if you're thinking about following me after this. But as for the false outrage, it's just kind of funny how, a week ago, it wasn't really talked about that much that a penalty flag was paid. It was talked about a lot, but it wasn't as outrageous that the Dallas Cowboys benefited from that call. It looked like that everybody was kind of just like, oh, okay, the Lions could have done this, this, and this, and they could have won the game that way. But when Des Bryant's pass is ruled incomplete, and correctly, in my opinion, bad rule, right call. That's my opinion on that. It's a bad rule, but they made the right call based on the bad rule. As that happens, it's like it was a given the Cowboys were going to win that game. And I'm going to give a shout-out to my guy Ross here. He mentioned it in his story today on PackersTalk.net. It was the Cowboys, if Des Bryant makes that catch and they score, they have a 45% chance of winning the game at that point. When the call was overturned, that was down to 13% chance of winning the game. So the odds were never in Dallas's favor to win that game, regardless of how it goes, and that's scientific. I think it's just a way of Dallas is a big media market, and you can see that, the four-letter network over there at ESPN, they like to talk about those big market teams quite a bit. I can see that, you guys probably benefit from, or don't benefit, I should say, from the East Coast bias out there. The Seahawks have been the best team in football for 2 years running, and in my opinion, they're not talked about as much as if, say, the New England Patriots were the best team 2 years running. They're on that network because it's right there. Dallas is a big market. They're a historic franchise, and people like to see them successful. And I think that it's just a way for them to find something to talk about from Sunday until Wednesday or Thursday when they can really start breaking down the matchups for championship weekend. And we like a show like First Take, for example, wouldn't exist if fan bases and such didn't like the controversial topics and such, if you will. I personally prefer the more straightforward football kind of stuff, but people like the shows, and that's got a lot of why these people are able to do that. They can get away with it because they know it gets them better ratings if they say something outrageous or just a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, I think as a society we have too much of this false outrage, and it goes farther than just sports. And it really got to me after this. And I'm the farthest thing from either a Packer or a Cowboys fan, and I had my own read on what took place. Obviously, I thought the rule book, the way they looked at it and they made a decision, it was the right decision and call they made after reviewing it. And in fact, I actually think I came up with a pretty good solution. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but that is, if a player not only gets 2 feet in bounds, but takes an additional step, which just might be a step, not a full, 2 steps, but just a step, I would consider that a football move. And I think in his case, they've said he took 3 steps. I think he took another half a step, and I think he did lunge for the goal line. And I do think that's when the ball came out. I mean, it's pretty clear as how it happened. But, the book has its rule, and he went to the ground, and the ball came loose, therefore not a catch. But do you think there is a way to is there a solution, or the way it's set up in the book, do you think that is the way it has to be? So, quote unquote, Pandora's box isn't opened once again when it comes to these types of plays.
Yeah, I mean, the question that I had was, I was standing talking to a bunch of people as the play happened, and everybody's like, what do you think? Is that a catch or not? And I was like, common sense tells me that Des Bryant caught that ball. But the rule book says, at least to my understanding of it, and I had to look it up afterwards, and I was right, that he didn't. And that's how it was. I think that there's got to be a little bit more, like you said, common sense thrown into this rule. I like your proposal. He took a 3rd and a half step, if you will. I know he went to the ground and that the ball popped out and all that good stuff, but he had control of it long enough, in my opinion, to where that should have been ruled a catch. Unfortunately for the Cowboys, that's not how the rule book is written. And that call, one thing about officiating is always, we always ask, just be consistent. If this is defensive holding on one play, it's defensive holding on the other play, all that stuff. They've been calling that play consistently incomplete for about the last 5 or 6 years. I don't understand where all the outrage is coming from. It's a bad rule, but that's what they've been calling it for 6 years. Why all of a sudden is it thrown into the spotlight again? I'm guessing, I'm not guessing, I know it's because it was a playoff game and the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers were involved. 2 pretty good teams as far as the NFL goes and everything like that. But, yeah, just put a little bit more common sense into the rules and go from there. I think that's what they should do.
And it's funny, there was an exact same type of situation happened in our game against the Panthers where Earl Thomas intercepted a ball where we had the Cam Chancellor jumping over the line a couple of times, and then they eventually made a field goal. But he actually made a pick in that scenario, and it was the same thing where he went to the ground, and it was hard to see whether or not, he had the ball clearly up in the air when he came down, but then when he went to the ground, and he almost didn't have to, but when he did go to the ground, the ball moved, and therefore, incomplete pass. So according to the rule in the book, it's the right call. It's just we can't probably find a solution in this, I don't want to say gray area, but in common sense, as you said. And it is. It's just the way it is. That's the way the rule is, and everyone's lived under it, and it's been called consistent, which is probably the only call that's been called consistent in the NFL for the last few years. But hey, It is what it is. You're moving on. We're moving on. Here we go. All right, let's go ahead and let's. This is kind of a segue question, and that is, I assume you watched the Seahawks game, a little scouting. You had to do that, and I'd love to find out from you. Do you think the Packers will try to adopt any elements from the Panthers' game plan to attack, and if so, which ones?
Oh yeah, I think that one thing Carolina did a pretty decent job of, most of the time at least, of staying in front of the sticks. One thing against the Legion that you can't do is have 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11, things like that. If you got 3rd and 5, 3rd and manageable situations, you can do that. And one thing about the Seahawks, as great as their defense is, they are a little vulnerable up front because they play so fast. They can be caught. I think you can run on them a little. If they have a weakness on their defense, that's what I'm going to guess it is. It's kind of a brick wall, but, there's a soft spot here or there on that brick wall. So I think the Packers are going to try to play, possession-type football methodical drives down the field instead of, if they can get a big play, they'll get one. But with Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas back there, I have a hard time seeing them being able to get big, 60-yard bomb-type touchdown plays in the game. So I'm thinking that they got to be methodical. They got to use the whole field, which they didn't do the last time around. It was like the middle of the field was ignored, and then obviously the side that Richard Sherman on. That's been discussed about quite a bit since that game took place. But, yeah, a lot has happened since that game. But, the Packers got to be able to use the entire field, and they got to run the ball and stay balanced. And I think Mike McCarthy does a good job of making adjustments during the game to do things like that. You could see kind of the way that he adapted his game plan against the New England Patriots. Similar corner to Richard Sherman out there and Darrelle Revis. They had Revis on Randall Cobb early on in the game, and they had Jordy being doubled by your former corner, Brandon Browner, and one of their safeties just kind of followed him in a double team. So McCarthy made the adjustment of putting Randall Cobb in the backfield and moving him whichever way, kind of dictating the matchup that way, and it worked out really well for them.
Well, we got a couple of guys in this Legion of Boom. It's kind of been a rotating door this last since Brandon Browner left, and we got a couple of new and young guys that have been pretty good. Darrell Simon is still a little green, but he gets better and he's big, just like Richard Sherman, but also Byron Maxwell, who I think has been underestimated from an attention from the national folks and how they consider the Legion of Boom being Earl, Cam, and Richard, but he's going to get paid. Let's just say, I'll tell you right now, he's going to get paid in the free agency market this offseason. Let's talk about this matchup. The Hawks offense. First, let's start with the offenses, and I want to say Hawks offense versus the Packers defense. It was a 7-point game at the half last year. I should say the first game of the season. But the Hawks put down the hammer in the second, and they obviously outscored you guys by a bit. What do you think the Packers can do successfully this time? Because there were some opportunities where they gashed us a little bit, but overall the numbers didn't speak it. What can the Packers do to run the ball successfully against the Seahawks?
Well, one of the big turning points in that game was the injury to right tackle Brian Bulaga. And God bless Derek Sherrod. He fought back from a horrific leg injury in 2011 to get back onto the field, but good football player he is not. So the Packers, as the offensive line got together during the season, and another thing from that game is it was Corey Lindley's first game ever. But since that time, this is arguably the best offensive line that Aaron Rodgers has ever had during his tenure as the starting quarterback. I think if they can keep the line healthy, they're running some stuff out of pistol because Rodgers' calf injury limits him a little bit. They do some things running to the right. They don't run to the left as much because David Bakhtiari does struggle in the run blocking. But with the Seahawks, as fast as they are, a little undersized, they can do some things to dictate matchups. Bruce Irvin's on the field. Obviously, he's dynamite as a pass rusher goes. But I think that you can run on him a little bit. Obviously, Brandon Meebane's out, and Hill is out for the Seahawks as well. Two guys in the middle there. I think that they can do some things running the ball. And another thing from that game is now, Jarrett Boykin's not a starting wide receiver anymore. He was in that game, and he was kind of the sacrificial lamb thrown out to Richard Sherman while Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb were put elsewhere. Devontae Adams is not a rookie anymore. It's not his first game ever, and it's not Richard Rodgers, tight end's first game ever anymore either. They're different players now than they were the first time they came to Seattle. So is Corey Lindley, the starting center. So if the Packers can keep their offensive line healthy, and like I said, stay in front of the sticks, I think they can do some things offensively against that defense. As good as Seattle's defense is, and it still is the best in the league for my money's worth, it is a little more vulnerable than it was a season ago when they just demolished everyone in the playoffs and destroyed Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl.
I think you've caught on something which I do agree with, and that is the way to attack the Seattle defense is you have to be methodical. You have to be positive yards on first down, whether it's even 1 or 2 yards. You've got to stay in the positive category to set up that 3rd and 4. And that goes right down to it seems like every team that's had success against us this year, granted it's only been a few, but those that did, and I want to take that Cowboys game out because it was an anomaly that the way that their D-line destroyed their offensive line destroyed our D-line. But in the case of the Chargers game, that was a scenario where they they said, look, we're going to be okay running 100 plays this game and getting 2, 3, 4 yards every play and setting up those short yardage third down. I think you've hit on it, and that is the way to beat us, but you can't turn the ball over. You guys only turned the ball over once against us in the first game, but there was obviously some sacks that took place, and my big thing is Aaron Rodgers' health. You know, this is a fast defensive line going up against you guys. And so how is your offensive line currently looking? And, I thought I had heard a rumor, and tell me if I'm wrong, that maybe your center was a little banged up. But how do you think that this offensive line now, at this point in the season, is looking as compared to that first game we played?
Oh, by all accounts, Corey Lindsley, the center, is okay. He might be a little banged up from celebrating the Ohio State Buckeyes winning the national championship. That's his alma mater. But that's the only guess that I have as far as that goes. But for the most part, the Packers' offensive line this year was really good. Like I mentioned, it's probably the best offensive line Aaron Rodgers has ever had as the starter. If I'm not mistaken, just before the playoffs began, and I don't know if they changed that, Pro Football Focus had them rated as the fourth best pass blocking unit in the league. And you could see after Rodgers' injury against the Detroit Lions, they protected him very well against that front. And nobody's going to say that the Lions have a poor defensive front. That's a good unit that they were blocking. Cowboys, not so much. Why the Cowboys didn't try to bring more pressure, I'm not sure. Whether or not Dan Quinn will try and do that remains to be seen. I would guess that they would at least try. But one thing about Rodgers is I think he's shown that he doesn't need his mobility to play well. He's played 2 really good games on one leg and mostly playing from the pocket. Now, this defense is unlike any other thing that he's seen, though, because Seattle on that fast track can cause some problems, especially on the defensive line as far as the pass rush goes. And when they got that pass rush cooking with that secondary, they're damn near impossible to move the ball against, is the way that I would put it. But the offensive line, it should be a really good matchup. I highlighted that matchup last night when we recorded our show, so that's the one I'm going to be looking at. If the Packers can give Rodgers time, I think as great as the Seahawks secondary is, you can only cover guys for so long. You know, if they can give him 4 or 5 seconds, he can find an open receiver. That's just how things work. So the offensive line and that Seattle defensive line is definitely a big matchup for this game.
Probably, in my opinion, the matchup of the game, and it goes to what you just said there. I go back to that Cowboys game where I felt like we actually got bludgeoned a lot. It was because that offensive line was able to give Tony Romo time. And any quarterback in this league can tear you up if you got time, because it's just you can't stay on those very athletic wide receivers, no matter how good you are, for all that period. So, all right, let's jump over to the other side of the ball. Let's talk about the Hawks' offense versus the Packers' defense. And, I think that this could ultimately be the matchup that decides the game, I think, from the standpoint of, other than the offensive line with the Packers going against the defensive line of the Seahawks, it's going to be, can the Seahawks create offense? Does that problem that kind of we suffered from earlier, middle of the season, still, age its ugly head? Or are we going to still be able to be like we were the first game, minus Percy Harvin now, and move the ball? How do you see your current setup defending the evolution of the read option the Seahawks have now, minus Percy Harvin going into this game?
I think the Packers' defense actually matches up better now than they did in Week 1, and a lot of that does have to do with Percy Harvin. A lot of that read option stuff, horizontally, beating the Packers' inside linebackers, slow linebackers at the time. A.J. Hawk and Brad Jones no longer start for the team. They've been replaced by Sam Barrington and Clay Matthews. And Matthews is an absolute assassin from the middle. The Packers' run defense was ranked 32nd at the bye. And if you just cut that part of the season out and go from the bye week forward, the Packers' run defense is top 5 in the NFL. So that's a dramatic improvement from that. Clinton-Dix again, first-round pick, no longer a rookie. It's going to be a tough thing because you have to defend the whole field with Seattle, Russell Wilson, and obviously Marshawn Lynch. But no Percy Harvin doesn't give them that option-type jet sweep sort of threat that they had. That's a little bit more conventional now. Still not entirely conventional because they still do run the zone read with Wilson and Lynch. But for the most part, the Packers match up better now than they did then. Now, I'm not saying the Packers' defense is anywhere near on the level that Seattle's is or anything like that, but they are a better unit than they get credit for.
And there has been improvement in the run game. You mentioned Clay Matthews being moved. I've also noticed that as well, and I know that the national guys were talking about how you have taken Clay Matthews, moved him to the middle of the field, and he's still kind of as a free agent when it runs to his roaming. But talk about that move and how the impact of it has been to the growth of this defense.
Oh, it's been dramatic. I think that you can point first and foremost to Ted Thompson's acquisition of Julius Peppers, the play and health of Nick Perry, and the health and play of Mike Neal as well. The Packers have more depth at the outside linebacker position to where a move like that could be made possible, whereas in the past they probably couldn't do that. What it's done, I mean, like I said, the run defense is top 5 since Clay's moved to the middle. He's fast, he's instinctive in the middle, and it kind of makes it a little bit harder to find him, too, because he still lines up outside, he lines up inside, he runs twists, things of that nature. He had 8 sacks the last 7 games of the season to get him into double digits, and that's not just him. Julius Peppers has been very good down the stretch here. He hasn't had to be the guy like he was in Chicago. That's made a lot of people better. And then Mike Daniels might be the best defensive lineman in this matchup. Criminally underrated, in my opinion. He kind of just pushes the pocket back. He does a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet, but you can see the dirty work that he gets done. Nick Perry got a sack on Sunday, but it was Mike Daniels pushing the left guard into Tony Romo's lap that allowed Perry to be able to do that. Daniels is very good. That's going to be a big matchup for the Seahawks. Is can they move him in the run game? And can they keep their offensive linemen out of Russell Wilson? Because one way to defend him and keep him in the pocket is pushing that pocket, making it collapse, so he doesn't have those escape lanes to step up, step side, and run and gash people with his legs, as he's so prone to, or dynamic running the ball, Russell Wilson is.
And that's a good segue into the Russell Wilson question of this, and that is, the way to, I hate saying way to beat us because Russell has been very good in the pocket. He did this last week. He was very good in the pocket. A lot more quick passes, slants. He hit a couple of great timing seam pattern routes to Luke Wilson, 2Ls Wilson, as I call him, the Canadian, the fuzzy Canadian from up north. What do the Packers need to do, and how will they do it to try to contain him in the pocket, especially on passing downs?
I think you're going to see there's this package that they run. It's called the NASCAR package. And what it is they put their 4 best pass rushers on the field. Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers, Mike Neal, and they either pick a defensive lineman or go with Nick Perry. And what that does is it puts a lot of speed on the field, and it allows them to, and you're going to see it on passing downs, obviously more so than run downs, because otherwise they'll just get blown off the ball. In the run game, which is what Seattle's identity is, as good as Russell Wilson is. But you can see those things. I think they're going to change up their looks. They're going to try and play it straight. They're going to have Clay Matthews spy, I think. I think that with the impact that Nick Perry and Julius Peppers have had, along with Mike Neal, that you can afford to have Clay just kind of sit back and watch him a little bit, cover guys, things of that nature. And he's so fast, he can move all over the field. So you're going to see a lot of different things to try and keep Russell Wilson in the pocket. And even then, they better bring their A game because, Russell Wilson still kind of gets this reputation as a game manager. And I'm by no means a Wisconsin Badgers fan, but I watched that guy play at Wisconsin, and I've watched him play since he was in Seattle. They don't ask him to do the same things that, say, Green Bay asks of Aaron Rodgers, but they also don't have to. They have a really great run game. They have the best defense in football. They don't have to throw it all over the lot to win the game. Whereas, some of these other guys, Peyton Manning, for example, in Denver, they do have to do that. Tom Brady, they do have to do that. Russell Wilson, in my opinion, and I always rank quarterbacks at the end of the season, I could very easily make the argument of putting him third. It looks like Peyton Manning's arm is shot. Could very easily see myself putting him behind Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and that being it. The guy's a great player, and it's definitely a matchup that the Packers have to at least limit to some degree, and it's going to be one that's very difficult because Wilson can beat you in a wide variety of ways, and they got to be ready for all of them.
It's the broken down plays that he torches teams. and we get so many of our big plays. And we've got our, all of our wide receivers and tight ends have rules where they know what to do, especially if he's running to the right or left out of the pocket in a broken play scenario. And it seems that it's so amazing how they seem to always get open in those longer situations because he's able to buy time. And it's going to be about how you contain him, and if you try to get to him too, try to be a little cute about it, as opposed to keeping the pass rush stability of your lanes. That's really where things can get broken, and it makes it so frustrating for defensive players to see it, really almost have him, and then all of a sudden you give up a 60-yard play. So it's going to be fun to watch because you have some very athletic players. Peppers and Matthews are some of the best. So it's going to be a great battle. Let's get to the end here. The keys to the game, and we'll start again as we did last time with your 3 offensive keys for the Packers. I'll give you my 3 defensive keys for the Hawks, and then I'll give you my 3 Seahawk offenses, and then you'll finish with the Packers' 3 defensive. So kick it off. 3 offensive keys from the Packers to get the W on Sunday.
Well, it's kind of funny. We've pretty much mentioned all of them already, so this will be fun and easy for me, which I appreciate. First and foremost, Aaron Rodgers has to have time in the pocket. When they're throwing to the Packers, let's be honest, they're as great as Eddie Lacy is and has been for this offense, the Packers are a pass-first team. And in the NFL, for the most part, unless you have a really, really great defense and a really, really great running game, you have to be able to throw the football. And the Packers have the best quarterback in football, in my opinion. They have to throw the ball. He has to have time in order to do that because the Seahawks have a great secondary. They're going to get their plays where they have our guys covered, and Rodgers isn't going to be able to buy time like he normally does. So he has to have time in the pocket. He can't have people sitting into his lap. He's got to be able to have a clean pocket. So first and foremost, clean pocket for Aaron Rodgers. Secondly is spread the field. By that, I mean don't limit yourself to one side of the field as they did last time. And I'm not saying they have to target Richard Sherman X number of times, but the last time these two teams played, it was like they didn't even look to that side of the field. It's like they saw him over there, cut the field in half, said we're not even bothering with that side of the field. They didn't do that when they played Darrelle Revis, so I'm hoping they don't do that when they play Richard Sherman this time around. And third and foremost is feed the fat, and the fat is Eddie Lacy, which is a joke from the picture that surfaced after his first training camp. He looked a little bit like a bowling ball, so we call him the overweight running back here in Wisconsin. And it's fitting because, he's in good shape, as you can see, but, he just bounces off defenders. And the reason you have to feed him is to slow down that pass rush first and foremost, and it gets positive yardage on first and second down or a third and short, things of that nature. Keep the sticks moving. Stay ahead of the sticks. That's the biggest thing there. So those are the 3 offensive keys, in my opinion, for the Green Bay Packers.
Well, number 1 for me is coming right off of your third, and that is you have to stop the run. If we make you guys one-dimensional, even though you're a fantastic passing team, it fits into our strengths as a defense. We're the best at this. We shut down the best that ever did it last year in the Broncos and their explosive offense. Granted, your team is different. I think you have a much more impactful and a deep passer in Aaron Rodgers as opposed to Peyton Manning. He was always throwing really short stuff last year, but he was very successful at it. But you guys are a team that, with the cannon arm that Rodgers has, can do a lot. And so we're going to need to at least make you one-dimensional. If you guys can be balanced against us, that's going to be bad news. The second thing is, and you kind of mentioned a little bit, but it's third downs. We have to keep you in long yardage scenarios as opposed to short yardage. I don't want, even though against the Cowboys especially, we did have them in long yardage third down scenarios. They were still able to convert. The immobility of Aaron Rodgers, hopefully with that calf injury, will help us take away that running threat that he may have to scamper for a 5 or 6 yard pickup in a nickel dime scenario, coverage scenario. In this case, be able to make you guys be in long yardage, third down, make you have to throw the ball deep, and we'll go ahead and play our short, medium, deep safety zone, and have you come up 2 or 3 yards short. The last defensive key, and granted, we only we only got one turnover against you last time, and turnovers are a big deal. But I really feel that our ability or inability to get to Aaron Rodgers in this game is going to be the difference. We have to get pressure, whether it's just hitting him as he's throwing. And I'm not saying hurt him. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you have to nick him up. I saw in that game against the Cowboys, especially the limping down the field on some of the big plays he had in the second half. We have to put him on the ground. And so whether it's sacks or just QB pressures, we've got to get a number of them. I'm going to say total 10-plus. That's a lot. So 10-plus, real big hurries, pressures, hits on Aaron Rodgers, impact him, make him soar, hopefully during the game, and then he can go out to Olivia Munn and they can have a good night and celebrate, having the opportunity to spend all this time together because the season's over, right? Okay. All right. So those are my defensive keys. Well, let's talk about the Seahawks offensive keys. First things first, we've got to establish the run. Marshawn Lynch, granted, he didn't have his biggest game against you. He had 112 yards and 2 touchdowns, but a lot of those yards came in big runs as opposed to consistent 4, 5, 6-yard plays. So we had big numbers, over 200 yards rushing against you the first game. We've got to have a similar type game. We've got to get some of those big plays running the ball. The second thing is our third down percentage. It's been a key for us all year. We have to we've been getting better at it. We were so bad early in the year, middle of the year, 30%, 35% on third down. We've really gotten over that hump. We were over 50% this last game against the Panthers. So third down percentage, keep improving in that area. And then third and lastly, we can't give you any opportunities. We gave you one turnover in the first game, which almost really put us in a bad spot if you guys had been able to really come out, even though I think you did score a touchdown on that play. But we can't give you guys free chances here at the Clink. Make the crowd, make you guys exist in a horrible, not fun environment for a visiting team. We can't give you the ball, and we can't give ourselves a reason to be quiet. So no turnovers. That's key number one for the Seahawks.
Okay, there you go. So the defensive keys for the Packers, I mean, you mentioned it right away. First and foremost, I don't know if they're going to stop Marshawn Lynch. They had a good test against DeMarco Murray, and I saw a statistic. If they took away his 2 biggest runs, and he had 2 approximately 30-yard runs, the Packers would have held him to 2.7 yards a carry. Now, obviously, you can't take those runs away, so he averaged almost 5 yards a carry. But if the Packers could figure out a way to limit Marshawn Lynch, and when I say limit, I'm saying, like 20 carries for 80 yards, something like that. He's still getting 4 yards a pop, but he's not running and doing his awesome touchdown celebration that I love so very much. If you could keep him to where because the Seahawks, their offense is at their best when he does his things. That's their momentum swing. It's like when the Packers hit Jordy Nelson on a deep ball. Marshawn Lynch breaking off big runs, running through and over defenders. That's what makes the Seahawks go. So they got to be able to do that. Number 2, they got to limit Russell Wilson. Keep him in the pocket because, like you said, he's most dangerous when he's out of the pocket. He's still good in it, but with him, you kind of have to pick your poison. And in this case, they have to keep him in the pocket, push some pressure in his face, and get him on the ground a couple times. And then third, I think they do have to get a turnover. And the Seahawks, these are 2 of the best teams in the league as far as turning the ball, or not turning the ball over, I should say. I think that this could be one of those games where literally the first turnover could be the team that loses the game. I think that this game is going to be much closer than the first game was. I think these 2 teams match up better with each other than they did early on in the season. So the Packers need to get that turnover defensively if they want to go off to Glendale, Arizona.
Jacob, I know we went a little late, but I nonetheless appreciate you spending the time to preview this game and give us great inside analysis on your Green Bay Packers. Just before we go here and sign off, I'll continue because I got to break down the Panthers game, but let you go for the evening. 2-hour difference out there in glory old Wisconsin. I know it's pretty cold right now because I went to college in Minnesota, so I'll let you continue the cold weather. Hopefully it fridges you guys up just a little bit, for the weekend, but we'll see how that plays out. Well, that's probably why you're coming out a day early. You guys got to warm up, right? So anyway,
that's got to be it.
Well, Jacob, thanks again. But before you go, please share with all my listeners where they can find you, where you're on Twitter, and then obviously your website to find your great show that's on part of the Blog Talk Network.
Okay, it's PackersTalk.com. That's going to be the writing, Packers News podcast, all that stuff. And then Twitter, you can follow me personally. I'm at Jacob. You can see it. Paul's done a really good job of promoting the website and this particular show, so you can find me through that. And then the show will be at From the Bench, just like it sounds. So that's how you can find us. Go ahead and listen to the show. We will have everything for you on Monday. And I know that, Paul, you're not letting me get out of here without telling you who I'm picking, are you?
Well, Raiders of the Lost Ark is on, so we got time.
Okay.
Please tell us, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, as I said on my show last night, and I've said throughout this, I think that this is one of those games last year. One of the Seahawks said after they played the 49ers that they won the Super Bowl, that they just get to take home the trophy tonight, and I think that is the case in this game as well. I think whoever wins this game is beating the Patriots or beating the Indianapolis Colts. But I can't pick against the Green Bay Packers in this. It just appears as if it's early on in the season. They have a lot of things that just kind of bounce their way. I think Seattle's a great team. Got a lot of respect for them, as you can tell. I've gushed about them the entire time. But I just think this is Green Bay's moment. It's hard to repeat as a Super Bowl champion. In Seattle, if there was any team that was capable, they are. But I'm taking Green Bay. I got them 24-21. And I'll openly admit that there could be a little bit of homerism and hopefulness in that pick. But I really do think this way with my head as well as my heart. But yeah, I like the chances. So I'll say Packers 24-21 Arizona.
It's going to be a great game. I got to give my pick next week, or I should say tomorrow on my other show. But I'll tell you this much. I'll give you a hint. Their fans call themselves the 12. I'll just tell you that much. Might be a hint, might not be, but we'll see what happens.
Okay.
I love you. Thank you so much, Jacob. Been great tonight, and we'll hook up soon, all right? And congratulations on your great year, and good luck to you regardless, okay, this weekend.
Thanks, you too, Paul. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, and good luck this Sunday.
All right, buddy. All right, folks, that was Jacob Westendorf from the benches. And the Packers Talk radio show does fantastic work. You can find him on Twitter at Jacob Westendorf, just like it sounds. And, of course, there's links on my website, 12for12s.com, where you can find everything Jacob does. Well, we're going to finish out this show. We've got tons still to get into. I'm going to take a quick break and come back and get into the rest of the Hawks 12, obviously debrief on the Panthers game, talk about what went right, what went wrong, and hopefully this gets us ready for this Sunday. The NFC Championship stays and lies ahead of us all. I'll tell you what, I'm excited. I'm sure you are too. Of course, we always have to play one of our good songs from our friend Norb Cowwheely. We got such a big game ahead of us, and I think there's only one song we can play in this scenario, and that is Norb's great Win-Win-Win. Now remember, Norb Cowwheely, you can find him on YouTube and Vimeo. He has fantastic stuff. He actually had a great a cappella song he came out with this last week. You need to check it out if you haven't. But check out all of Norb's stuff, Norb Cowwheely on NorbCam at 12, or I should say on YouTube, and that is NorbCam. Fantastic work, Norb Cowwheely. So here you go, a little win-win-win, and this is 12 for 12s Radio. Your host, Paul Beyer. We'll be right back.
Green and white, total domination wins the fight. He's taking control, the one that we trust. The name is Russell Wilson and he's dangerous. We're bigger, faster, stronger, louder than yours. We want the ball, hell yeah, we're gonna score. Hold on to the rock, cause the tendency's hot. You know the 12th man will be rocking it out. Who's gonna hit ya? The Seahawks. Who's gonna run ya? The Seahawks. Who's gonna blitz ya? The Seahawks. What's important now? Win, win, win. Back ya? The Seahawks. Who's coming at ya? The Seahawks. Who's gonna smack ya? The Seahawks. What's important now? Win, win, win. Seattle Seahawks.
This is Paul from Double Overtime and the 12 for 12's radio show. I am proud to announce one of our sponsors, www.stickersnorthwest.com. Don't forget the www. All of us here at Double Overtime Radio are proud to announce our latest sponsor, www.stickersnorthwest.com. Creating some of the stickiest Seahawks, 12s, Mariners, Husky original designs to share with your friends or just your favorite book or folder. Some of the coolest local flair options you can find. Check out www.stickersnorthwest.com and make your purchase today. Don't forget to use promo code PAUL20T and receive 20% off your next purchase. Do it today. You'll be sticky for sure. Again, that's www.stickersnorthwest.com. Remember to spell Stickers Northwest out. And also, when you use the promo code, it's PAUL2OT. Now back to the program. Hello, everybody. We are back. This is 12 for 12's Radio. We're going to go a little long tonight, so rest of the show, if you're not listening live, will be heard on demand. There's your notice. All right, here we go. Picking up where we left off in the Hawks 12. Again, thanks to Jake Westendorf from Packers Talk Radio Network and from the benches for coming on tonight to preview that huge game we have coming up this week in NFC Championship against the Packers. So thanks again, buddy. Appreciate it, and we will be in touch. All right, number 9 tonight on the list, a look back. The Hawks offense, as we always do, we look back at the last game versus the Panthers. And I'll tell you what, there were a lot of things that were good, and there were a lot of things that weren't so good, things that, typically we have dominated or been better than the other teams especially this past 6 games. I think there were 2 factors the Panthers threw at the Hawks this week that made this game closer than the score really revealed, the 2-touchdown difference at 31-17. The first one, I believe, is that they thought, okay, we're going to play this game a lot like the Chargers did. And that meant that they were going to try to convert plays, both running and passing, of 3 to 4 yards, steadily run the ball, steadily pass the ball, short yardage, take their time or take their picks at going long. But much like the Chargers did in that week 2 win versus the Seahawks and the Heat in San Diego, they matriculated the ball. There were not a lot of negative plays. Even though they had some big plays, they had 6, it was all within context of how the Seahawks planned it. And it ultimately didn't work, but they did very well at having long, sustained drives. And if you look at their drive charts, it's almost shocking to see these just little tiny dashes matriculating down the field. Big, long, time-consuming drives. Second, they ran the ball successfully at times. Wasn't off the charts, but it was good enough, especially with Cam Newton. And this was one of the things I was scared with. I did not want to see a Cam Newton, option on the field. I wanted him to be in the pocket throwing the ball. But he ran the ball for 39 tough yards. And those 39 yards were extremely important in the scheme of how this game played out. And thankfully, we're not going to be facing a quarterback other than maybe potentially an Andrew Luck in the Super Bowl that can run and be good at doing it. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are not those types. So, especially with the injury to Aaron Rodgers right now, without the injury, he's one that could be dangerous. But now, not so much. So, but the fact that Cam Newton had those 39 yards rushing, that was a big, huge score for them. Now, on paper, with many of the statistics really falling in the Panthers, hands, the Panthers achieved their goal. However, they failed at taking care of the ball, and that's really what it came down to. 3 turnovers. Those 3 turnovers were the difference in this game, plain and simple. Otherwise, the Panthers executed their game plan to perfection, and that cost them the game. It just goes to show you how hard it is, I think, to face the Seahawks and win. They are so good at so many different things And it's hard to sit here and say that because this is the NFL, but that's the truth. They break the game. In their opinion, it's all about the ball. But when you look at it overall and how it plays out, in games where the team on the other side plays their best game, which I think is the Panthers' case this week, that is simply the case. The difference will be turnovers. And in this case, it was 3 turnovers. Therefore, 2 touchdown difference. Now, going back and looking at some of these numbers, some of the power numbers that I like, we definitely had the difference on. One is 3 and outs, or 4 and outs as I call them. The Carolina Panthers had 4, 3, or 4 and outs out of 10 drives. Remember, scoring drives. I look at my drive setups a little differently than the NFL. Only scoring drives as opposed to kneel down scenarios. Seattle was 2 of 8, so 2, 3, or 4 and outs out of their 8 drives. The Carolina Panthers had 6 big plays. Seattle had 9. Carolina had 31 runs versus 37 passes. So, again, a lot of plays, matriculating the ball, but at the end of the day, a running team passed the ball more than they ran, 37. Now, looking at the Seahawks offense, it was the exact opposite. Again, 24 runs versus 21 passes. Only 45 plays. Remember, I don't count the last drive because it wasn't a scoring drive. We were just running the clock out. So when it comes down to, and it would have been even more, just so you know, for running the ball, because we did run the ball so much and knelt down. But 24 runs versus 21 passes, not as many plays, especially we've seen out of this team, but we had those big plays. First downs, again, a lot of these things are not good for the Seahawks. Panthers had 21 versus our 16. Third down efficiency, we were fantastic. 7 of 13, we've gotten so much better. 3% or however that adds up. I don't have the calculator in front of me. Looking at how total yards were, we had 348 to the Panthers 362. Yards per play, 6.7 for us versus 5.3 for Carolina. And you think, geez, we made them run so many plays, even though they outgained us, they still weren't as efficient with the ball as we are. And this is really that nut and bolt scenario where you put Seattle in a scenario in a situation offensively where they have to do one of a couple of things. Well, they'll do one of those couple of things. In this case, they did it, and they still win the game. They're still explosive. They get the yards per play, and passing the ball, they outpass Cam Newton. You ask that of Russell Wilson, he does it, 248 to 230 yards. Completion percentage, 15 to 22. Yards per pass, this is probably one of the other big differences in this game. 10.3 yards for Russell Wilson per pass to Cam Newton, 6.1 yards. Huge difference, over 4 yards per reception. And then obviously the big interceptions, 2 versus 0. Russell not turning the ball over. The sacks, even though they did have 2 sacks, those weren't turnovers. That's, again, a big potential difference in a game like this, in these big championship playoff-type games. But we did lose 20 yards. We had the penalties, 460 yards, not good stuff. Our running numbers weren't as strong, even though we had 100 yards on the ground. Rushing numbers, we had attempts of 28. We only averaged 3.6. That's not us. We're over 4.5. And the red zone, not good, 1 of 3. We need to get those balls in the end zone. I expected at least 4, but we did have a couple touchdowns. Obviously, we scored from outside the red zone. So we, again, explosive plays come back to help us. The time of possession, a huge difference in this game where we have really been dominating. 25 minutes, almost, let's call it 26 minutes for the Seahawks versus 34 for the Panthers. So, again, in that big area that we have done well at, we don't get it. We don't win that battle. But, again, you go through all these, and there's so many more, it seems to me, good numbers for the Panthers. But when you look at some of those key factors the Seahawks really depend on, and ultimately the turnovers, you see the Seahawks dominate. And that's how it all breaks down, folks. Pete Carroll and his staff have done a wonderful job of really analyzing how to manufacture and put themselves in a position, because of their strengths, to always have a way out. And that's why they're able to stay in these games. I think that 66 games now, they haven't lost by 10 points, 10 or plus points. I mean, it's astounding to think of the Seahawks under Pete Carroll and the fact that they've been in every single game they played. And then, of course, I've gone through Russell Wilson's career in only losing 2 games by 7 or more points. This is fascinating. All right, looking at the defense, obviously we've talked about Cam Chancellor, just one of the best games of the year, 11 total tackles, 9 solo, 1 pass defended, the pick 6 for a touchdown. The safeties really dominated this game. Earl Thomas, 11 total tackles as well, 5 solo, 2 passes defended, and should have had a pick. Showing how deep and well-rounded this team is. The safeties turned out to be the heroes this week as opposed to the linebackers or the defensive front. Cam and Earl were dominant, prevented big plays. They made their own, minus obviously Earl dropping that ball, which you can't do, my friend. But otherwise, it was a fantastic game. The LOB, the big half, the older half of the LOB just did an amazing job. The D-line and pass rushers lived in the backfield. They were relentless against Cam Newton. They got the 2 sacks, 16 yards loss on those. But what the big one was, they hit him 8 times. They hit him 8 times. They put Cam Newton on the ground 8 times by just dinging him. And those things add up. Now, playing against a guy like an Aaron Rodgers who's not going to be able to move as much, it's going to be that much more important to ding him up and make that calf hurt a little bit more. I think this is a great example of, even though this defense is so strong, so good, they bent and they didn't break. And that it shows you how well-rounded this team is. Some key performances I really liked. Obi Schofield, 3 tackles, 3 solo, but the 2 QB hits. Already talked about Richard Sherman. Obviously, he got 1 pick, 2 passes defended. He's never really a big tackle guy, but 3 total, 2 solos. Cliff Averill, 2 tackles, 2 solos, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 2 QB hits. Bruce Irvin, same numbers across the board, 2 tackles, 1 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 2 QB hits. That is good stuff. And I know a lot of people, again, Bruce Irvin not gotten a lot of praise this year. Bruce has been a bad you-know-what out there, folks. He has just played a strong side, always holding the line, turning players in, and with his speed, even if guys are able to try somehow get around him, he forces them out, and the boys that come running. And so you see Earl pop up in there running like the wind, and it really stops those offenses so they can't get big plays around the edges. Great job, Bruce. All right, let's keep moving on here. 11 tonight. A look back, keys to the game. Well, this is the second time we faced them, and one of the big things I always talk about is the toxic stat. Just so everyone knows, the playoff toxic stat for the Seahawks so far is +6. I can tell you, and I haven't even looked at everyone else, we're leading everyone in our toxic stat for the playoffs. That goes to everybody that's in the playoffs right now. All right, continuing here. What are the 3 defensive keys to our game this last week that we had to make sure didn't happen? Well, we had to win the turnover battle. We did that. 3 turnovers to 0. Defensively, Cam Newton, I wanted to keep him under 30 yards. Well, we kept him at 39 yards. That was not good. I really felt that 30-yard number was important, and we didn't get it done, so fail against me in making that call. But I definitely looked and found the right number. I think that's important. Lastly, 3rd, shut down Kelvin Benjamin. Well, I'm not going to say we did that. Darryl Simon had to go in and play that position on him, and really tried to. The Panthers did a good job of making sure they matched up Benjamin on Darryl most of the night. Guys, Kelvin Benjamin's a monster, 6'5", 240. Darryl is a big dude, but he had his moments. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't horrible, but he wasn't perfect, and as the LOB really lives by. And in this particular case, just looking at his numbers, he had 7 receptions, thrown at 10 times, 75 yards, a 10.7 average, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, that's no bueno. And you compare that to his first performance, he had that long 51-yarder and bigger number, obviously, on yardage for 94 yards, but only 4 receptions for 7 on 7 targets. Kelvin Benjamin had a big game this week, and this guy's going to be a star in this league. I'm telling you, I would have loved to have had gotten him somehow, but it comes down to you didn't, and in this case, I don't think we achieved our goal of shutting down Kelvin Benjamin. I think it would have really limited the Panthers' offense if we had been able to. All right, looking at our 3 offensive keys for the Seahawks, how do we do? Red zone scoring. I want to be above 50%. I thought 2 of 4. We can't add in those big plays. We had 2 big plays, touchdowns outside the red zone. We were 1 of 3 ultimately. That's not good enough. We have to be over 50% at least in the red zone, especially in playoff games. Diversity in receiving targets. Well, I hit this one. I wanted to see 7+ and we had 7 in this game. So good job, Russell. Way to find the outlets, way to find the guys and be distributing the ball. Lastly, third down percentage. Again, I've been harping on this all year. I want to see 45% or greater, 53.8, 7 of 13, 53.8%. Russell Wilson, 6 of 6 for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns on third down. That's pretty good, folks. Game prediction, I had a blowout, 38-13, 31-17. I covered the spread, 11.5. So guess what? I win. I get that one. So overall for the week, let me see here. I was 1, 2, 3. It was 3. I was 3-3 on the 6 keys. And we won. There you go. All right. So moving on. Will to win. Last topic of this evening. And by the way, thanks again for everyone joining me. How do you define the will to win? Well, for me, it's always been determined by playing for my teammates. When I coached baseball at the national level, I routinely brought up, there's a famous line in Black Hawk Down that when they're driving out back to the town, when the Delta soldier there turns to the Army Ranger, and the Army Ranger asks him, why do you do this? And the Delta soldier turns to him and says, he says, for the guy next to me. And it's never about you. It's always about the person who depends on you. And this team has captured that thought process in its totality. It's utterly fascinating to see where the team is based on where it was just a few months back. Picking up the pieces at 3-3 post the Percy Harvin debacle. Now that same meeting that occurred on the evening of Saturday, November 22nd, where the Hawks decided to come together with each other and play for each other. I mean, it's just been unbelievable. They've dominated every team in their way since, and now stand ready to become legends. The will to win is an amazing thing, as long as you have it on your side. And I think we 12s, we have it in spades. All right, that's the show for this evening. Again, thank you, everybody, for staying on a little longer tonight. Obviously, big show getting us ready for the NFC Championship. I'd love to thank, again, my guest tonight, Jacob Westendorf from Packers Talk Radio and from the benches on the Blog Talk Network here. You can find all the Double Overtime shows, including 12 for 12s and Double Overtime, which I'll appear with Tim and Barry tomorrow evening. Follow Jacob, please, on Twitter at Jacob Westendorf. That's JACOB at Jacob Westendorf. And, of course, the network's website, PackersTalk.com, www.PackersTalk.com. For all who may be listening, please support all the shows on the network, as well as following me on Twitter at PBizzle, on Facebook, Paul Beyer, as well as the 12 Patrols radio page. You can find us on YouTube. Please rate, like, all that neat stuff, comment on everything that we do. Really appreciate it, as well as, again, the updates I send out 3 to 5 times a day on Twitter, as well as on Facebook. Once a day I do a big update with articles and everything you want to know about the Seahawks. We've got a big week ahead of us, folks. I can't tell you how much it's just this feeling of uplifting energy throughout the city. Everyone's got their jerseys, their shirts on, their shoes on. Everyone's hawked out, and this is something that you just have to live in the moment. And I remember last season thinking back how I was just amazed that I did this whole project of becoming this little amateur pundit guy and starting 12 for 12's radio and saying, looking back at it, I had this entire catalog of the entire season to go back and look at in doing what I did, because I lived in the moment every day. And now I've had that opportunity to do it 2 years in a row. And it's just an amazing, uplifting, fulfilling thing, and I hope you get the same amount of joy out of me doing it that you do listening or doing it on your own. But always feel free, take a step back and enjoy it. Take a deep breath, look at what it is and how it fits into your life and the difference it makes for you. And I tell you what, you'll treasure that every day of your life, along with all the joy we get out of just watching this team play. All right, that's it for tonight. Have a wonderful one, as we always do. We have to end this show with a little Iron Maiden, and we got to up the irons. But we're going to have to go with what I think is just is what this is all about. We got to run all the way down to the Glendale Hills, the hills of Arizona, the desert country. But there are some hills, Camelback Mountain, as we all know, and down in Phoenix. But there are some hills, and the Iron Maiden has a famous Run to the Hills moment, and that's what we're going to be trying to do this weekend. Get through the Packers, get to the NFC Championship. Let's go win this thing. Go Hawks! Go Hawks! Go Hawks! The 12s believe in you. Send out your love, folks. Time to go to business. This is 12 Trails Radio. Your host, Paul Beyer, signing off. Go Hawks!
White man came across the sea. He brought us pain and misery. He killed our tribes. He killed our creed. He took our game for his own need. We fought him hard. We fought him well. Out on the plains, we gave him hell. But when it came to much decree, oh, will we ever be set free? Riding through those clouds and barren wastes, galloping hard on the plains, chasing the redskins back to their holes, fighting them at their own game. Murder for freedom, to stab in the back, women and children are cowards attack. Run to the hills. Run for your lives. Run to the hills. Run for your lives. Soldier blue in the barren wastes, hunting and killing's a game. Raping the women and wasting a man, the only good Indians are tame. Selling them whiskey and taking their gold, enslaving the young and destroying the old. Run to the hills. Run for your lives. Run to the hills. Run for your
That's the show, folks. Thanks again for joining me, 12 Patrols Radio, your host, Paul Beyer. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of you out there, 12s. Here we go, another magical mystery tour of joy. NFC Championship versus the Packers. Let's go take care of business, Hawks. We're with you. It's going to be a loud one. High noon, Sunday. Go Hawks. See you next week.